Folks, it is now time for the blockbuster that you all have been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome on stage the one and only founder of Cred, Kunal Shah. Round of applause, please. And joining him, Razorpay's CEO and co-founder, Harshil Mathur. Thank you both for being here. I'm really looking forward to this wonderful chat. Together, they are asking the billion-dollar question: is traditional shopping dead, or is AI about to rewrite the rules of consumer economy? With a huge round of applause, let's begin this wonderful chat. Thank you.
Great. So I don't think Kunal needs an intro, especially in Bangalore, but I'll try to cover a bit of what he has done. So Kunal has been a serial entrepreneur, a sharp thinker, a provocator of first principles thinking. He started Freecharge, which became one of the largest digital payments app. Then he started Cred, which is changing how people treat creditworthiness as an aspiration. He's been a mentor and an investor in so many startups, including Razorpay. But the one thing that most people know him for is his inciting Twitter threads, where he poses a question and then makes everyone spend a day or two discussing what did he mean by it, what did he want to ask us. So I think that's one thing that everyone keeps reading every day. Welcome, Kunal. And we have a very interesting, because of those threads, we have a very interesting question to probe you with today, which is, how does consumer behavior look like in a post-AI world? And it's a very hard question. We didn't know anyone else to ask this. So I think, given the amount of hard questions you ask on Twitter, we thought we'll pose this to you. So I'll start with a very general context-setting question, which is, what is the one thing that you feel will change drastically in how consumers handle the world in an AI-driven world, how people buy things, how people purchase things? What is one thing that you feel will change drastically?
Actually, before I answer this question, can we have lights on the audience? I'm going to ask a few questions to the audience, as expected. How many of you use Cred? Please raise your hand. Okay, wow. Very good, well done. How many of you use GPT almost on a daily basis? How many of you have used GPT to ask a personal question to do with the relationship that you're dealing with?
Oh, wow.
How many of you have used GPT as a friend to have a chat about some topic? How many of you are either following a social media account or an influencer who's just AI? Okay, cool, perfect. This is good. This is a good cohort to answer this question. I think many of people over here were very, very young when internet came. I'm 45, I was not very young. I was just about in college, passing out of college or middle of college. The first things that happened with the internet is all the stupid behavior, right? Trying to see a celebrity's picture, chatting with random people, access to porn, all of these things becomes like an interesting thing to do first, right? So I think what you are observing right now is most people are using AI for stupid stuff. Stupid in a very, but it's just thing, it's a toy right now.
Top of mind stuff.
Yeah. Mera ye email draft ठीक कर दो. Actually, how many of you have shared confidential company information on GPT to get a grammatical mistake corrected? Please raise your hand. Okay, good. So I think we are living in a world where we are still figuring out what to do with this toy, right? How many of you use GPT at least 15 times a day? Okay, that's crazy. Now what is happening is very few people are realizing the real impact of what it can do in their life. So it's almost creating a species. Humanity is getting split into, first it was internet and non-internet, smartphone, non-smartphone, and then there is this AI species, but the problem of AI species is it can actually have an exponential curve to it, right? Now, the scary part of that is I don't know if they can keep up with the rate of change that AI is going through, because you don't know what anymore that you are supposed to do, learn, or tell your kids what to study, because it is changing and evolving so fast, right? It doesn't have an end. Form catch up ban gaya. Ab ye theek hai, like the updates are just almost on a daily basis. And the hyper competition and hyper capital being put into it is causing the world to go through this. So I think the right way to think about this is AI is a lot more like electricity than internet. The human population and the human GDP went like this for hundreds of years, and after electricity, it went like this. So total GDP of the world and total population of the world has been only in one direction after electricity, because once we understand productivity and can do more things with less energy, it changes. But the moment we are saying now there is an even more efficient way to even burn less energy, and now for the first time even white collar can actually use their brain less and less, it changes everything, right? So for example, internet made information available in the air, AI is making intelligence available in the air, and that concept is a very alien concept to start with, right? Because most people are like, what do I really use it for, right? So coming to the actual user behavior, we should be all equally scared and excited. Scared because if we do not all become AI first, we may not be able to compete in the world that is there in the future, right? It's not an option. All the people who say, oh, I'm not very good with tech, I'm very scared of them. Scared for them, because they may not be able to compete in the time ahead. But when it comes to looking at, let's say, the younger population, right? I often say this, that every house in India has a chief technology officer. Between the age group of 8 to 18, they are like literally driving all the technology usage in the family. And more importantly, their behavior is something that you have to watch out for, because they are literally being raised by AI and not their parents, right? And that's something that you will wonder that what does it mean, because they are asking unlimited questions. They are not getting slapped for asking a question that is problematic, right? And they are going through all these motions through an AI. Now, there is a downside to this. AI doesn't tell you that you are stupid, and AI doesn't tell you that this is not something you should do. It just tries to be nice all the time, because the algorithm is designed to only...
That's what I was going to ask you, right? Like, is that there are two parts of that, two downsides of this. One is, A, does it make people dumber or smarter? Like, does this mean, let's say, if you talk about tech, now because everyone has a co-pilot sitting with them, does this make them a better developer because now they can do a lot more? Or does it make them a more stupid developer that you don't even know how to code? The other part of the problem is, because as you said, AI feeds your own biases, like the way social media does it end up capturing you in your own echo chamber further?
I'll answer the second question first. The answer is absolutely yes. Many people use AI as a therapist. Unlike a real therapist who will actually tell you sometimes that that is not correct what you're thinking and correct you, this one will just kind of be nice to you, because nobody wants to see a screenshot where you are getting screamed at by the AI, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Or it's making a gross mistake and correcting you in some way, right? So I think we are kind of, it's a self-fulfilling thing that if you want to believe bullshit, it will feed you more. It's a little bit like that world of astrology that you can completely get sucked into, and you start believing everything that is there. And I'm not against the business of astrology. It's just that if you believe in it, it is problematic. Now coming to the first question of making people smarter and dumber, I think that's a very provocative and correct question. Look at what smartphones have done to people. There are enough individuals who spend their entire day watching short videos and doing some stuff that is just time pass. And there are people who have used this to get smarter, learn new concepts, really get better at their job, and so on and so forth. So I think every technology has the ability to really accelerate you in any direction that you wish to go in, right? It's just a fuel. You can use the fuel to go anywhere, right? But I think the bigger problem that I'm staring at, these algorithms are so good at just keeping you captivated, right? The amount of time, let's say, we proudly talk about how cheap the data is in India, and how many GBs of data we consume. The question we never ask, कि ये सब करते हैं तो काम कब करते हैं, right? Like, if you're just constantly watching short videos at the work and distracted by thoda Instagram check kar लूँ, thoda ye kar लूँ. Like the problem is that where is the work happening, right? I remember discussing with Nitin at Zerodha that he says that the amount of time I see people spend time in the market hours on our apps, I wonder if they work, right? So the question is that internet and AI is this all-consuming thing that actually suck time away. And all of these apps, Netflix, Chat, GPT, all of them are competing for one currency that humans have less of, which is time. All of us can have more money, but all of us will have the same 24 hours. And all these extraordinary technologies sucking more time out of us, I don't know if we'll be able to kind of keep up. But there are some people who are becoming hyper-productive. For example, many developers in my team tell me that they are now able to experience 10x, 20x productivity. Now they will just become a different species, right? I think very soon there'll be a different compensation for AI-enabled engineer and non-AI-enabled engineer, and that discrimination will start very quickly, right? Because ultimately, the metric that will matter to every company very soon is revenue per employee, right? Today, banks don't think about revenue per employee as a metric, right? Some tech companies do. But the moment it becomes the norm, that revenue per employee becomes the most important metric, the role of AI and role of individuals who love to leverage AI will change.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, and that brings me to the second part, right? Which is, because given this is a fintech conference, I'll try to bring money into that. So you say Cred is in the business of trust, right? And you say trust requires a certain kind of behavior, a certain kind of usage. You say humans establish trust a lot more than machines can, at least today. So when it comes to money, do you think people will reach that point that they can trust AI completely? Not just even money, like commerce. Will people reach that point where they trust AI completely that, hey, just buy this thing for me, or just manage my money for me, or just invest in the best stocks for me? Like, do you think people can reach that? Or is that an uncanny valley like you have in video that too much of personalization might feel, hey, suffocating to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends on the age group, right? If you look at our own app data, right, the trust a 50-year-old have on apps to a 40-year-old, to a 30-year-old, to a 20-year-old is very, very different, right? Their relationship with technology is not of fear, right? I'll start with one example. Many of you have somebody in the family who uses the phone this way. And many of you use it this way. Now, if you see the person who's using it with one finger, they're actually scared. Kuch galat nahi daba do, right? Now, those cohorts are going to behave very differently when it comes to technology and trust, right? Actually, let me ask this question to you. How many of you trust AI more than your friend when it comes to advice? Okay, 5, 6. How many of you think that AI is smarter than your friends? So I think what is going to happen, we are carrying a 300 IQ pet in our pocket right now that is going through the stage of infancy to teenage to adulthood very quickly. And very soon, it is also likely to make us feel like a kid and not as smart. So I think it's about how do we leverage this versus that. So I think the trust is a function of who do I rely on. Right now we are feeling that, can I fully trust it? But I think very soon data will come out. Let's take an example of sports. Today, most high IQ sports are just entertainment and not high IQ anymore, because any basic computer algorithm can beat you in any of the sports. Chess, poker, Go. So all the people who play these sports right now are just entertainers, right? Because there is a smarter algorithm that can beat them, like a very small algorithm can beat them. Very soon, this will happen to many professions that require deep expertise, right? Is it hard to imagine a radiology machine that can do an X-ray and the report of X-ray in less than the cost of Xerox? It's not hard to imagine anymore.
Maybe better than the doctor.
And maybe better, right? So the question is that we will remain in denial for the longest period of time, because 10% of doctors will be better than AI. No questions about that, right? Because ultimately they will have that alpha and edge over the regular thing. But when it comes to most people, it will be better, right? So I asked on my Instagram once, doctors, that how are you leveraging AI? The most scary thing was that almost 70% of them said that we are taking AI's help to diagnose. Now that's the real skill in being a doctor, diagnosis, because once you diagnose, the prescription is almost automatic sometimes, right? So I think we are going to a places where the bulk of the stuff will be done, and then super specialized stuff will be done through AI. But the question is that how long can you keep up with that? Because how soon that will also be easily done over there with a higher accuracy. So I think as the training models are getting better and better through the edge cases that are being not handled well, and as vertical focus kicks in. For example, let's say sharp set of 10 founders get into really building doctors and lawyers and other things. I think we're just going to have a very different world. Now, coming to the money aspect of it, imagine, let's say you're a bank and you're in the business of lending. Which customer can you give a 20-year-old loan to? Because what if the world is going to change and their job structure will change and their income structure might change? So I think we are entering a world where it's going to be harder and harder to make longer bets. Shelf life to each business is shrinking every decade, right? The total shelf life of public listed companies is shrinking. It's going to shrink even further, right? Even the biggest monster companies are not safe, right? Forget about the smaller companies. And your company, my company is going to be in always this existential mode. So now good news is people who love chaos are going to love this period of time, right? If you remember the COVID time, all the founders who loved managing in chaos and wartime did well. They actually absolutely crushed it during that time. But I think the world is going to be perpetually in this wartime mode because the rate of change is accelerating at a level we cannot imagine.
And what are these second order effects of that? So, like you've said in the past, and when some natural behavior changes, it comes out in very different ways. For example, to your COVID example, when we all went into COVID, digitization went up significantly. People thought everything will go digital. We came out of COVID, people went and did travel like anything else. Because they got so bored of digitization, they wanted a relief. And now travel is all through the roof. Everyone wants to travel. Everyone wants to go on trips. So there's a second order effect that came out that, yes, digitization went up, but parallelly, people craved non-digital experiences. And that came out in form of travel, in form of entertainment, in form of concerts. What will be the second order effect of this, right? Like that when people are so engrossed in AI, when your AI is your friend, AI is everything, how will people solve for the craving that you have for a human need?
I think it's a very sensitive topic, but I think what happened in COVID is that when we sense that life could be fragile and we all are at risk, we all did extreme behaviors, right? Almost everybody did risky investments. We had acceleration of people getting married or separated in the relationship during the COVID period of time. We had people kind of taking very bold decisions in their life. But I think that's what happens when you're pushed in the corner and have to make some calls faster, right? If you're in that permanent state, you feel great to be numb. You're like, I can't deal with this anymore. Let me just check out of all of these things. For example, many of us get overwhelmed and delete Instagram. Like, what is that behavior? You're like, boss, there's too much change and too much of stimuli. Let me not do that anymore. So I think what will happen is we will see much more risky behavior, right? If everybody is feeling existential about their job, they will want to think about poker analogy, right? When you are the small stack, you always think about going all in. Like, let me go all in, because वैसे भी wipe out होने वाला है, right? So I think that's going to create a very peculiar behavior. When it comes to consumers and their choices about, for example, many people I'm worried are going to go through significantly lower birth rate because it feels so scary to bring a new life to this world, right? Like, ab mera khud ka tikana nahi hai. Like, why do I bring another life to this world? Like, this is a very real thing, right? And as the world goes through these kind of turmoils, I think we'll take more riskier behaviors, which may not be ideal for us, because this all-in tendency comes at a massive amount of cost, right? So I foresee more risky speculative behavior in consumers. I foresee people taking very bold calls, or my biggest worry is getting scammed.
Yeah, and scam is, of course, a harder part to solve for. Maybe AI will solve for itself. But let me zoom out to a macro picture, right? So we zoomed on how people will behave. But at a macro level, like talking about wealth gap, right? And we have spoken how inefficiency is the biggest employer in the country and in the
world.
In the world. And that will change, AI will remove a lot of inefficiencies. Now, will that, and it goes back to the macro question, but it expands from there. Will that create the largest wealth gap in the world, or will it create a more equal world? Like, will people be able, will we reach a point where everyone will have a universal basic income or something like that? Or will it create the largest wealth gap where if somebody's offshoot, they just become a billionaire very quickly?
I think if you study humanity more closely, there has never been in the time of humanity where there was no gap in wealth, right? If you look at the king's amount of money and, for example, we say, oh, India used to be very rich. No, the kings were very rich. People were not, right? And a lot of the affluence that came in, right, was always concentrated, right? Now the thing is that the beautiful thing about people who have money is that money can compound while they are also compounding. Imagine so for many individuals, their wealth makes more money than they make, right? It's hard to outcompete these people, right? Now, if you are just looking at that equation, right, the truth is, from the current 140, 150 trillion dollars of GDP that the world has, it's very easy to imagine that we'll have a 1,000 trillion economy, right? Which means there'll be lots of trillionaires, right? Because even growing up, billionaire was an absolutely absurd concept to imagine, right? But then now you just see them all around. I think the overall income will go up. Everybody will kind of go up on the per capita income. But it will come at the back of actually letting them be competent and competitive, right? The worry I have a lot of times is that when we kind of start going into the direction of saying that, hey, we'll take care of you, you don't need to worry about things, I think the edge that people have to survive will go down, right? I think ensuring that people remain competitive, and if we do not do that, we will create a world where we have to constantly take care of people, and many people who are competent will not want to be in a world where there are a lot of people who are not competent, right? So I think the thing that we have to think about and be careful about is that can we really, really protect the acceleration that is happening and actually take the benefit of it, right? For example, we have the youngest population. That's the best thing that we can do for ourselves, but what should people do with that, right? If you say, oh, I'm going to use AI and become the next big social media influencer, bad call, right? Because we have already enough of them, right? But if you say, I'm going to use that and build this business and solve this problem and really make it easy for people to do certain things, you might accelerate and start making more wealth. Because it's very, very, very easy in post-AI world to imagine there'll be millions of millionaires, but probably there'll be hundreds of social media influencers. So which odds you want to play with?
Interesting. Let me come to Cred itself, right? So, I mean, you have a knack for seeing the change and adopting to change. At Cred, how you're adopting to AI? Because AI is going to disrupt the business of money significantly, and Cred is in the business of trust, business of money. At Cred, how you're thinking about it? Like, what changes are you making today?
I think, apart from the obvious things that, oh, we'll make customer support fast and all that, everybody is doing that. I think two realizations is very clear. Unless every single individual is AI first, it's going to be harder and harder for them to compete with people who are AI first, right? So I think what we are planning to do and starting to implement is that, is it harder to get hired at Cred unless you're extraordinary at AI? Or is it harder to retain your job at Cred unless you're extraordinary at that? Because to me, there is now a clear segregation of people who are hyper productive with AI and not hyper productive with AI, right? So that's the first change that we are trying to do. The second thing is that how do we kind of protect the consumers even more, right? Because we realize that it's going to be extremely harder to do bad financial behavior with the onset of rate of change of the world. So one of the things that we are really investing on is that can we build mechanisms to protect the consumers from scams? Like I'll give you a classic example. Like let's say imagine a hypothetical scenario, right? Let's say an individual is flying to the US, is off internet for the next 15, 20 hours, and their family gets a call. It sounds exactly like their son or daughter. And this person is saying that, hey, I'm stuck at this airport, I need some help, I need some money to be transferred to me because otherwise I'll not be able to fly, I've been caught, detained into something and quickly send me money. And it's a different number because they have taken your phone away at the agency and you exactly get the same voice. Do we think that our parents will be able to know or will they panic and transfer money quickly? So the question is that we are entering a world where the imagination of people who can do scams is at 100x. And many of these things, we are figuring out a way to build technology to kind of prevent some of these things and learn, because I believe that it's going to be insanely easy to manipulate humans. I follow many social media profiles that are absolutely AI and people think they are real, right? Where is that line? Very soon, it's not hard to imagine that some of our actors will live forever because their digital avatars will continue to make movies, and we will not want to see new actors anymore, right? So the thing is that we are entering a time, how do you build the second order protection for the consumers and our members is what we are thinking about, and spending. So what we've done is like parked a large chunk of our cap table initiative and kind of building that capability, because we believe that unless we do this proactively, we will lose the trust of people have on internet, on AI, on this, if we don't protect them.
Interesting. I have a bunch of other questions, but we have 5 minutes before we want to open for Q&A. So let me ask you some rapid fire questions, right? So, right, like,
We got very serious with this AI topic.
yeah,
right?
that's why
So we should just
break out a bit.
it's not a, guys, many of you are going to benefit from this. At least people who have come for this event, they're going to benefit from AI, because many of you are actually at the cutting edge of adopting technology. Many of you raise hands. At least 30% of the room raised hand when I asked them how many of you do more than 15 times, which is crazy. You are literally in the 0.001% cohort of doing that. All I can give you as an advice to this group is that every big change, there are 2 choices we have. We fear it or we ride it. I suggest that we ride it absolutely like bosses, because this is our time as India to really absolutely crush it. And if we keep being passive one more time, we may not get this opportunity again.
Actually, before I ask my questions, let me open up for some audience Q&A. Like, anyone, folks, have a question? And please keep it at the level that Kunal is answering. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, Kunal sir.
Yeah, you're able to hear? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Who do I see?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So if you see very recently, China has come up with DeepSeek R1 and very recently Kimi. So, and previously Claude, Anthropic, everything came out of US. So from India point of view, where do we see we stand out? Because I think...
Let me ask a different question. Does it matter India has an LLM specifically? Like, we have this debate. I just want to ask you
India is a multilingual country,
Yeah,
and
so
we have a lot of
No,
languages.
but there are companies like Sarvam, Shruthrim.
I think it's very cute to say, "Arey, abhi main isko bhi," I will show them what India is all about. I just think we should be the beneficiary of everybody's tools, right? If we did not question when the world invented LED or WhatsApp, ke, oh, apna kyun nahi aaya? Like, we just used it and we became better at it. We've built our own UPI, we are beneficiary of that, the world should be copying that, right? The question is that we need to leverage what is already there, because most of our jobs are hyper inefficient, right? And as a large country, we should be finding ways to accelerate, right? It's a little bit like podcast, right? Everybody's making one, nobody's seeing it, right? It should not become the same thing with LLMs. Let's become the largest user of LLMs in the world, versus trying to worry about who's building the thing and our answer to China, our answer to US. Let's use it. Let's become the largest users and beneficiaries of LLM.
So next question is on a lot of scams because of voice cloning and kind of deepfake and all. So how do we are prepared? Because every day we see in newspaper a lot of scams coming in, online fraud, courier
I
scam.
think he spoke about that a bit already, right? Like, yes.
Well, it's going to be the norm. We have to all become better at it. Our LLM is very slow. So unfortunately, we have to really upgrade ourselves and protect the people who are actually not connected to technology. And by the way, I spoke to somebody very up there in cybercrime. Majority of people who are getting scammed
Tech guys.
are tech industry people. So just very important nuance to call out. All the people who think they are smart are not the smartest people.
Thank you.
The half smartness is a problem.
Yeah. Somebody had a mic.
Kunal sir,
Yeah.
thank you for your insights. I'm Rohan, and while building our platform Just Connect, as you said, that we hire intelligence on demand using the chat GPT and other LLM models. So how do you see that in the next generation, because we are the first gen user of AI, but the next gen users who are coming next, who don't have the details or information how to differentiate between the correctness and the incorrectness. So how do they differentiate between the things provided by the AI and implement those in day-to-day life or the whatever they are building or the creativity things they are doing?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like internet only. Actually, I'll give you a crazier example, right? When I was growing up, it was very hard to know who in the family was smart or not, right? Because you are respecting elders, default society, everybody has to be respected, right? Then WhatsApp groups came. Then we figured out, right? And those who don't figure out, they will never figure out anyways. So the point is that acceleration of information, acceleration of GPT, acceleration of things is about your judgment at the end of the day, right? If you become hyper dependent on anything, any technology, any model, anything, you will face the cost of it. But I think you look at the net benefit. The net benefit is going to be only positive because productivity is a unique concept. You know, many words in our, means most words in Indian languages don't have the word efficiency in it, right? And this is the first time we are actually hyper feeling this, that how to become like really, really good at it, right? So I think if we become more impatient versus trying to be more correct, I think we'll get it right over a period of time.
Just to add to that, there is a biasness on the training models right now.
There is
And the
bias around listening to me also. I'm fully biased. You're still here. Kuch fayda le lo uska.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Somebody here? Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah. Hi, Kunal. I'm a college student right now, and I have tried to, build SaaS from my dorm room, like again and again and again. But what we are seeing right now, as you said, the change is going faster. According to me, big corporations benefit way more than the upcoming generation right now, as it is becoming easier and easier to copy SaaS products, right? So let's say Canva built something, OpenAI literally like a month later built something else. There was a travel agency who was doing AI stuff. OpenAI literally next month built the same thing. There was an agentic AI company.
No, I got the examples. Come to the point.
So exactly, the example is the question, like for a person who is just starting off his journey, how do we basically hedge our knowledge against these big corporations?
It's a good
How do we
question. The right way to think about doing something is that it should be small enough that it matters to be built and not large enough that it will become irrelevant. By the way, most people who think that, oh, my idea was copied by OpenAI are just bullshitting. They don't know what they were building. They just say, oh, same bana diya. It's not same, right? The thing is that if you're so easy to give up on, like you can give up on anything, right? Why should any company exist for that matter? But I think this is the time where we are seeing the fastest 30 million ARR companies come in less than 3 months, 6 months, right? Fastest, right? 1 employee, 30 million ARR, 2 employee, 100 million ARR companies coming up right now. So I think it's about, can you find and understand markets? The unique curse that we've had in India, that many of us don't come from families that are doing businesses or being around people who do businesses, right? So I think our ability to identify problems and gaps is not the sharpest, right? We tend to be, like, I remember when I was building my first company, there were like 25 laundry startups in India. When everybody has a housemaid at home, I was like, kyun bana rahe ho laundry, right? But the thing is that we have no ability to, so India is a unique market where there are a lot of people who know how to build a dam for the river, and very few people know where the river is.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll take one more.
Hi, Kunal.
Yeah.
So my question is that given how important data is for AIs to train themselves, right? Isn't it important for us to build our LLM because let's say next 10 years there are data restrictions so that other models don't become so good, right? So if your LLM gets your own data and there is restrictions from all other countries, it makes it very important for you to have your own LLM. What's your thought on that?
I think the answer is taking some right amount of short-term calls and long-term calls, right? When it comes to a company right now that is trying to become hyper-productive and figure out a way to shrink their cost and really compete in a market that is very low ARPU market, trying to do all these fancy stuff will matter less because you really want to crash the cost first, right? It's a bit like saying that, should we build our own cloud right now? I mean, of course, it makes a long in the long term, it makes a great judgment call, but right now, trying to embark on that when your revenues are very small doesn't make any sense, right? So I think for most people, it makes sense to really leverage what is out there, right? You've never thought about building your own WhatsApp on the side because how can we make all the groups over there and discuss all our business stuff over there? Like just the same way, it's about what scale you get to where you start worrying about these things. My biggest worry for India, that we are absolutely worrying about the wrong things. Like, how many unique companies that we have leveraged which has used AI and we are like already benefiting from that? I think we are stuck with the wrong problems. My request to everybody over here, build. Worry later on.
Can I ask a last question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes.
So my name is Bharat Mangnani and I'm CEO of Bharat Go Digital. This question is for both of you, like, which AI tools you guys use on a daily basis for maybe more productivity or like, for any other purpose?
I have all of them on my phone. I have a folder which is AI and I've got all the apps kept over here, so I just use all of them. I haven't found any specific thing that I use one for the other. I just keep trying different things. Okay. I wish I was really smart. I'm unfortunately a philosophy major who's got into tech. If I was a dev, I would be losing 10x more tools. So I just keep going to my devs and say, kuch naya kuch kar rahe ho ki nahi kar rahe ho types. And I see their demos all the time, what they are doing with stuff. But I can tell you one thing, that even they are finding it very hard to decide what to do next week. It's changing so rapidly. So my personal go-to things is just use more and more of it. I use it slightly differently. I have usually some random questions, which otherwise internet cannot answer. So I make the connection through GPT and ask this question. For example, I asked a question that, is there a correlation between 5G penetration and low birth rate in parts of India? And actually, AI did a fascinating job to say that I might be right because of these following reasons. As internet comes in a particular thing, people's life changes materially, and basically, the conclusion I got is that variety repels duty, right? If the life is so exciting and fun and you're traveling and doing all the stuff, like going through the process of duty makes you feel away from it. So birth rate has a direct. So I think I do these random things. I am faster on truth seeking and history. For example, I want to know the history of, I don't know, how did shampoo come about, and it's good for, so all the people with random curiosity, this is like absolutely a joyride for me.
Okay, thank you. Harshil, your views on...
Yeah, every day there is a different tool, so I'm trying a lot. But the two the currently most useful ones for me are, one is the deep research by OpenAI. The depth through which it can do research, it's almost like having an analyst sit with you all the time. You can ask it anything and it does a full in-depth research, like something like this. It'll be able to give a really good correlation, bar graphs, everything, giving you specific breakdown of what is happening in the world. The second most, because I'm a techie, so for me, the tool that I'm most fascinated by right now is Replit, because like you can create your own personal app in 5 minutes. You can ask it a question. So now when I go to my team and say, hey, can we build this? And my team says it's going to take 2 months. I write it in Replit and say, hey, it took two minutes. So that's my second most favorite tool right now.
Okay, thank you.
So I think, I know we are out of time, but I have a few last questions for you.
Let's go.
I think first is a very simple question. Do you trust AI with your money? Will you?
I think trusting technology is not going to be an option. I do not trust myself on my ability to use technology well, but I trust the technology to be able to do its job well.
Okay. I think the second question I have is, let me ask for a college graduate. If somebody is graduating college right now, what job would you tell them to go in? Like,
My God. I think the only advice I have for people who are graduating or just recently graduated is give yourself a goal to become an absolute learning machine. And I have a simple metric for you. Any complex topic given to you, have an ability to learn it in 24 hours flat. And that's the only skill that will matter, because the world is changing too quickly for you to say, I know something, because the biggest cohort that is getting disrupted is the experts. But I think the cohort that will not get disrupted is extraordinary learners and who take pride. I would urge all of you to adopt a title for yourself. Maybe update in LinkedIn also if you are into that stuff. It's call yourself an absolute learner and the most curious person that is around all of you. If you do not grow both of these things, future is scary.
That was my second question, which is advice to startup founders.
Advice to startup founders is, if you are starting now, you're entering a world which requires much lesser people than it did in the past, which means it potentially requires much lesser capital than it did in the past. Sometimes you can do this whole thing on your own without even hiring a single employee. Ask yourself that you need to not do anything that the past companies have done. Ask yourself fundamental questions about, do I really need people? And really get sharp at understanding problem statements, go after things in detail. There is an availability to know. You can also be hyper surface level on 200 things or go deep in everything. There's an opportunity to kind of do both now. And what I would say is that focus on changing rapidly, building quickly, and not being in love with your original ideas. Because I can tell you with 100% guarantee that every single founder who's successful today, all their original ideas are absolutely stupid and they changed, but they changed so quickly that they eventually got to the right place. Do not be in love with being successful. Don't be in love with making your idea come to life.
Interesting. And one last question, given that this is a FinTech conference, one change in FinTech industry that you'll see happen because of AI?
I think every time there's a hyper emergence of productivity and efficiency, the number of parties required will disappear. I think there are many companies are default dead today. And I don't want to exclude Cred into that. If you don't evolve fast enough, we are default dead as well. Because the consumer behavior is changing so rapidly that we may not know. For example, that is happening to the, let's say, Bollywood industry. They don't know what movie to make anymore because the consumer behavior and taste is changing so quickly that you just don't know what will people watch and pay money for. So what I would say is that be hyper evolving and solve some very big problems, because even if you get a small part right, it'll be a business. If you go on to this micro use case, that'll get disrupted quickly by somebody building one tool. And one last thing, be really scared of people who are currently in college because they are born in AI. You are still figuring out which tool to use.
I think that's a good note to end on. Thanks, Kunal. I think this has been an amazing conversation. I have learned a lot. I'm sure everyone here has learned a lot. And more than anything, learning, I think it's given us a lot to think about. So I think all of us will head to the networking mixer and talk about AI only for the next couple of minutes. So thanks a lot, Kunal. I think it was wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much.